Well, good afternoon, Jennifer. Thank you for joining us here today.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. We had a great Halloween and now we're getting ready for Thanksgiving.
Yes, and the rest of the year will fly by.
I
I
know.
ended up putting up my Christmas tree because it was the only weekend I was going to be home right before Halloween,
There
but
you
I
go.
needed a Nightmare Before Christmas tree.
There
That
you
way
go.
it could just carry all the way through, and it was not a big deal, and it looked fantastic.
I
So,
bet it did. That's awesome. That's a great
yeah.
idea. Well, for those of you that are just joining us, I want to introduce Jen Silver. She's the president of Roofing Utah. And we were just talking about some of the services that she offers and some of the things that she does. But before we kind of get into that, Jennifer, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how you help roofers and contractors?
Yes. So I teach roofing contractors, primarily those that do a lot of insurance related work, how to get out of the middle of the claim process and utilize financing to enable a retail model that causes cost incurred, which kicks in obligations under the policy and simplifies the process for the homeowner.
That's a very specific niche. Out of the roofers that you've started to help, I mean, how many of those have traveled for storm and done that type of work, or are these people that are just kind of dipping their toe into the water for that? Or tell me a little bit about that.
Um, Honestly, it's the whole gambit. So I've got the ones that are going from storm to storm. I've got larger contractors that do restoration work in a specific area. Um, I've helped brand new contractors getting started. I just went up to Idaho actually today and worked with a roofing company up there that is newer and it just doesn't make sense to them, right? Doing it the insurance proceeds model way. So pretty much anybody. It has worked for everybody in every market that has tried it. It simplifies the process. The homeowners love it, especially when they're getting money back from their insurance company, and then they have a low monthly payment because now they can choose what they want to do with that money, and it gives them a lot of freedom. And putting somebody in a fixed loan with an annual percentage rate that isn't compounding can really alleviate a lot of stress from credit card debt, which a lot of consumers found themselves in after COVID.
Yeah, we've seen that as well.
Mhm.
Um, what is the number one thing that you're hearing from contractors and roofers right now, kind of in this economy and in this environment?
With regards to something specific or just in general?
Just in general.
I think there's a lot of concern around what services they should be providing, how they're going to, is there a way to have a repair and maintenance type of a program for a retail residential roof type of situation, and what's going to help carry them, whether it's other trades. I believe financing is 100% necessary to actually sustain the recession. I don't believe that people are going to be able to afford roofs. And in reality, 80 to 90% of roofing projects are financed anyways. So it's just, where are they financing it? Are they pulling from a 401k? Are they getting a HELOC? Are they borrowing money from a parent or a child or somebody in their family? So when a contractor offers financing, it gives homeowners the freedom to not have to go and utilize those things that could have a high penalty associated with them, or save them a little bit of humility of having to ask somebody else for the money.
No, I totally agree with you. And this is a tool that I wish that I had earlier on in my career. I grew up in the restoration industry, and I traveled quite a bit for storm work, whether it was fire work or hurricane work. And usually we just relied on the insurance companies and the claims that process that we were working through. Very, very few restoration companies, and I think even roofers at the time I was doing this were utilizing financing. So it's definitely a tool I wish I had in my earlier days.
Yes, I can imagine. I think that roofing contractors specifically live in more of a scarcity mindset, meaning we don't know when the work is going to be there. We don't know when the insurance companies are going to pay. There's a lot of variables and a lot of uncertainty. And so roofers would rather pay cash for things themselves when they have the money. And we take that programming into all of our conversations and we assume the rest of the world is like us.
Yeah.
And they're not. right? The majority of consumers live on a fixed income, meaning they know what they're getting in every month.
Yeah.
Millennials, especially, they live on monthly budgets. They'd rather have a low monthly payment that they can determine fits into their budget than they would rather pull from savings or pull from money elsewhere. And so I think we've really missed the boat and are kind of behind the times because pretty much everybody else is offering financing but us.
You're absolutely right. I mean, whether you're going to buy a car or a house or even, a big screen TV at the Best Buy or whatever, they are all offering financing. And so I think it's definitely something that contractors and roofers need to be looking at. Obviously, at Enhancify, that's something that we were really, that's our main thing that we're doing here. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that we have somebody out there that's talking with roofers and contractors about this. What have you seen has been the number one differentiator between a profitable roofer or contractor and someone struggling to make a profit?
Whether or not they understand their numbers.
Hmm.
I don't think the barrier for entry to get into construction is fairly low, and it's extremely low in some states. And there's not a lot of training around margins and appropriate charge and what's a reasonable net profit and the difference between a gross profit and a net profit and what is true overhead and how do you budget and stay in business and budget for growth and budget for expansion. A lot of guys don't know the difference between a gross profit and a net profit, and that is scary. If they're spending gross profit like it is the bottom line number, it makes sense as to why roofing contractors have a high probability of going out of business.
We've seen that. We talked to a lot of roofers and contractors on a day-to-day basis. And so we see some of that as well. So I'm just glad that we have somebody else there talking about that. What is something that somebody could do if they were kind of in that position where they're struggling, but they maybe see their neighbor, they've seen somebody else that's like, hey, that roofer is profitable or that contractor is profitable, and I want to be able to understand those numbers and be a better business person and not just somebody that's out there pounding nails. What's one of the things that they can do, obviously, other than contact you, but like what's something that they can do to kind of change that in their business?
Well, I think having a good accountant or CPA or bookkeeper, whatever it is really important, right? You need to have a bookkeeper that's sending you reports and that's willing to go through those reports with you on a monthly basis, at least. Weekly would be ideal, but monthly at the very minimum. And you have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to grow. Watch YouTube videos on reading a P&L. I mean, everything you could possibly want is pretty much on YouTube. I would obviously vet them, and make sure that they have a lot of views or good reviews or, something along those lines. But there's a lot of free information out there. Coming up, having a worksheet or a spreadsheet that you can go through and utilize for budgeting, I think is also really important. And yes, I do teach. I'm actually having my very first 2-day budgeting class where I'm teaching contractors all around financing November 14th and 15th. No, 15th and 16th, November 15th and 16th.
15th and 16th. Cool. Well,
Yes.
yeah. We're going to be, like I said, posting this in some social media, so we'll even put a link in there. So before we're done here, I'll have you give us some information so that we can have people sign up for the class. Is this going to be virtual or is this going to be?
It is going to be virtual. We'll do group lessons, and then I'll break everybody into their individual company breakout rooms and answer questions around, what would be a reasonable budget for marketing, for example, right? What's a reasonable percentage for that? Where should you be putting your marketing dollars? And, just generate conversations so that people actually have the opportunity to plan for 2023.
That's awesome. That sounds like a really good class. Just out of curiosity, what is that class? What are you charging for that class?
I'm charging $2,000 for the 2 days. You can bring as many people in your company as you want, and you do get to keep the worksheet that I had created. That way you can continue it ongoingly without needing me. So, next year when you sit down in November or December or whatever as a company to plan for 2024, you'll have a tool that will help you do that. It's going to help determine your break even. So you can play with numbers, price versus volume and, what number you want to sell at. If you want to sell at a lower price, well, then this is what the volume needs to be in order for you to start to generate a real profit.
It sounds like a really great class. For $2,000, for those contractors and roofers that are thinking about doing that, I would just say, I think the things that, you're going to be able to ascertain by being able to know your P&L, your profit and loss, being able to look at your numbers and be able to say, am I making money or am I not? If you're struggling to come up with even $2,000 for the class, then this is probably something that you should
Probably the
attend.
class you should be in. And I am doing coaching calls in 2023 to review and go over it as people are implementing budgets so that and that's included in the class as well, so that they do understand how to utilize it, right? I don't want to give them this information, teach them, and then say, okay, bye. You don't have anybody to reach out to talk to. So I am going to do that. So I'm super excited because I think it will make a huge difference. May not be the most fun, right? I mean, crunching numbers for 2 whole days may not be fun. That is my disclaimer, but I do promise that you'll have a better grasp on what you need to do to stay in business and to reach your numbers.
And it may just give them that aha moment to be able to look at their business and go, this is why it's either feast or famine, right? And then it gives them that opportunity to make those changes they need to.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, let's talk a little bit about marketing. I know that every once in a while I have some contractors ask me about some marketing strategies or tools or companies. What marketing strategies or tools are roofers and contractors using today that you've seen that have been successful?
I'm an out of the box thinker. Okay. So when I am teaching contractors around marketing and things that they can do to increase brand awareness, I don't necessarily go with what everybody else is doing, whether it's SEO, whether it is Google Ads or Google Guaranteed or door knocking even. I like to think, okay, how can I make my job easier and how can I make my marketing cost less?
Yes.
So one of my favorite ways to generate new business is by partnering with a nonprofit. So a school, a PTA, student council, and you have to figure out who you have to actually partner with for it to be the nonprofit in order to get the funds where they need to go, sometimes, especially in schools. But churches, veteran organizations, autism, I mean, there are tons of them.
Sounds like you're keeping it real local, which I like.
Well, I think that's important. So whatever you're doing inside your community is because that's who supports you. So giving back to the community that supports you as a small business, in my opinion, is part of what it is to be a small business owner.
Right.
But I'll go in and I create a marketing sheet, a flyer that talks about the program and have them email blasted out to everybody that supports them or, everybody in the student body and their parents or however that works. And then I will donate a percentage back to the organization of any projects that are sold through that. So typically it's 3 to 5%, which is an average marketing cost in general. The great thing is it's now a direct marketing cost because you only donate if it sells. So it isn't, spread out evenly over all the jobs. It's just the ones that you actually are able to sell that you donate that to. It's also a charitable contribution, so it becomes a tax write-off. And from an EBITDA standpoint, for people that understand EBITDA and what EBITDA does, it's the numbers at which a business value is determined. It's considered owner discretionary. So it gets added back into your bottom line if you were to go and do a business evaluation or sell your company. So in my world, it's a triple win. Plus, you feel really good because you're giving back to something awesome and making a difference.
That's what I liked about that. I talk to so many people and hear so many different marketing strategies, and I think you're the first one that I've heard that has said, hey, let's do some more local stuff, working with local schools, churches, veterans associations, things like that. I also think it just kind of helps spread the word a little bit faster through maybe some like Facebook Marketplace or community pages and stuff like that, and it really spreads the word on that business. So I like where you're going with that. That's actually a really good answer.
Well, and it increases the organic traffic to your website because even those people that don't want a roofing inspection want to go check out the roofing company that's giving back.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the value of having organic traffic to your website is huge. We haven't paid for a lead or paid for anything since July of last year.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I love that.
Everything comes in organically. Yep.
Fantastic.
So,
Well, Jen, if you could tell me a little bit about, if you were to pitch a contractor or really talk with them about why they should be using financing on their jobs and what kind of a difference that's going to make in their business, like just give me a little bit of your quick pitch on why they should do that.
well, one, because most contractors aren't, right? So being the first or being ahead of the curve is always best. As everybody else is going to be forced into something like this, probably in the next 18 months to 24 months, being ahead of it, getting it mastered, understanding it, incorporating it into your processes while your competitors are just trying to figure it out, I think will take those contractors way above and beyond during the recession. I also think that it's really important from a service standpoint and allowing your customer base to have a different option. We have a lot of customers that reach out and call us just because it says that we offer financing on our website. And that's one of the first questions they ask is, do you guys still offer financing? Because that is something that people need. And it allows contractors to have a better control over their cash flow. When you're not waiting for insurance companies to pay, or you're not waiting for homeowners to, go and collect or do something like that, it's just a much simpler process. Now, not every claim is insurance, right? So or not every roof is an insurance related roof. And I do understand that, but Americans are not great at saving. And homeowners don't typically have a fund for basic repair and maintenance projects that need to happen on their house, which would be homeowner obligations. And I think if we don't do this from a long-term standpoint, we really start to risk how middle class looks, to be really transparent, right? I think that, if as policies are changing and laws are changing and laws are being implemented, a 2% deductible on a home, which a lot of the Dallas and Texas area, or Texas, the whole state of Texas, and a lot of carriers are actually going to be going to that. When people file claims, 2% is oftentimes more than the roof.
Yeah.
And if they don't have the ability to replace it, their homeowner's insurance could drop, they could drop them, and they may have a challenge getting other insurance, and then you risk your mortgage, and it becomes a snowball. And we're prime picking for corporate America to come in and buy up all of the middle class homes. So
I think you're right on that. That's an interesting point. I mean, me and my wife, we were out at a conference last week in South Florida, and as we flew in, we kind of started looking, and we saw the amount of blue tarps that were on roofs as we kind of flew into South Florida there, and just the amount of roofs that were damaged there was crazy to me. But the other part that I thought was really interesting is on our way back out from the conference, we'd hired an Uber driver, and we started talking with him and how long he'd been doing Uber and whatnot. He said, I just started, actually. I have to be able to pay for the deductible on my roof that I don't have enough money for. So I started Uber driving like 2 weeks prior. And so that 2% deductible, it reminded me of my Uber driver in Florida here last week. So
yeah, it's crazy. I don't think contractors truly understand what the outcome could possibly be for consumers in the long term. And we're all consumers, so we should be worried about it.
yeah, yeah. Well, in the industry, in the last 90 days, what has been your biggest aha moment that you've kind of seen in the industry that's made you just go, whoa, that's different?
That is an excellent question. I was actually at a conference a few weeks ago, waiting to speak, and I was listening to another speaker, and she was an insurance agent. And she was on stage, and she was kind of just telling a story, not really thinking about what she was saying per se. She was telling the story. And one of the things that she said is that she often gets calls from loan officers asking her to reduce the coverage or the premium so that people can qualify based on their debt to income ratio.
Wow.
And I would have never thought that it started there, right? People having the coverages that they have. But the home buying process is so emotional. If you've ever bought a home, it's an incredibly emotional experience. And those days of closing, you're really willing to do whatever it takes to get into the house at that point because you're committed and you've got your earnest money in, and you know all of these other things are going on and you've already emotionally attached yourself to the home. So telling a homeowner, hey, so you're only going to have actual cash value coverage on your house, but we can get you in, they don't even hear what that means.
No.
Right? And more than likely they get a renewal and they don't open it because 50% of people don't even know who their homeowner's insurance is through, let alone open the mail that comes. And so those are kind of some of the things that I have seen while being in the industry that just shock me. I would have never ever thought. And it's probably the same homeowners that don't have money saved up. You know, if they're stretching to buy, they're probably not flush in order to actually maintain a property.
No, I think you're right. That's huge. I'd never heard that before, but I think, you know, just in these economic times that we are in right now, I think that you're right. I think there are people that just are trying to stretch their dollar. They're living paycheck to paycheck. And you know, if they, you know, I've just never heard of them call the insurance agent and say, hey, we need to reduce your insurance. That's amazing to me.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, if interest rates are higher and, you know, people's income hasn't yet caught up, the only real variable there would be homeowners insurance. Like if you're trying to reduce the monthly payment.
Yeah.
So it just never occurred to me that it could have started there. So that was probably one of the biggest aha moments that I've had in a while.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Well, Jen, we're almost out of time here. If you could really quick, tell us one more quick time about the class you've got coming up here on the 15th and the 16th, and we'll make sure and get some people over to that. And we appreciate your time today.
Absolutely. So I'm doing a 2-day class. We're going to be going from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on Tuesday, the 15th of November and Wednesday, the 16th of November. We're going to go over basic reporting, how to read reports from a P&L and a balance sheet. We're going to talk about hiring. We're going to talk about culture. And we are going to spend some time on your budget, working on what is true overhead, how to budget and plan, what your break-even point would be, and how to play with those numbers from a volume versus price standpoint so that you have full control over your business. And if you want to register, you can go to my website, which is www.jensilver.co.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much, Jen. We'll make sure and get some people over to that. I want to thank you for your time here today. And
Absolutely.
definitely, we'll see you on the next call here.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you. Bye-bye.